Hey, welcome to Redhead Professor, my YouTube channel. And the last little segment that we're going to go over this week on cost volume profit analysis is operating leverage and margin of safety. And the first one, operating leverage, really looks at what the difference is between your fixed costs and your contribution margin compared to your fixed costs. So to perform the operating leverage formula, it's really easy. You take the contribution margin and divide it by income from operations. And to show you just kind of how it varies, I have two similar companies. The only thing that is different is their fixed costs. So if the fixed costs are higher, theoretically you are not in as good of a position as a place that has lower fixed costs. And operating leverage is a good way to compare it. So when we're looking at these two companies, everything's the same except for the fixed costs. So when you're looking at companies that are totally different and have different sales, different contribution margins and stuff, if you look at the operating leverage, it can give you a good point of comparison when you're looking at a ratio or a number like operating leverage versus any other number and just trying to figure it out from a sales number. Because when you're doing operating leverage, at least you're looking at the same. So your contribution margin divided by income from operations. So again, I made it very simple in this example where exactly the same information. The only thing we tweaked was the fixed costs. So we made fixed costs a little bit more in the second example, and their operating leverage in company A was 4 and company B was 5. And you can see that it's definitely better to have a lower operating leverage than a higher operating leverage. You want to keep those fixed costs as low as you can. But again, like I said, in this problem, you can kind of tell just because everything's the exact same, so except for the fixed costs. So you don't necessarily need the operating leverage. But if you're comparing completely different companies, completely different variable costs, sales, etc., it's easy to use operating leverage to be able to compare them and look at 4.2 versus 3. And it just makes it more comparable. So margin of safety is exactly what it sounds like. It's your margin of safety. How much of a margin do I have where I'm safe, where I can still lose money up to, well, not lose money. How about I have a decrease in sales up to the point that I start losing money? So what is my margin that I have going on before I hit, before I start losing money? So margin of safety takes a sales and subtracts out sales at break-even point. So that's the point where you go from covering your costs to not covering your costs. So sales minus sales at break-even point divided by sales. So we're trying to come up with a percentage or a ratio that we can compare across industries, across companies. So it makes comparison easier. So for this example, we're going to say sales are at 400,000 and the break-even point is 300,000. Oops. And then we divide it by sales, which we already said was 400,000. So sales minus sales at break-even point gives us 100,000. And then divided by sales, which was 400,000. So 400,000. So that divided by that one. And then we can change it to a percentage, and we end up at 25%. So we have a 25% margin where our sales can decrease 25%, and then if they decrease more than 25%, then we're in trouble. Then we're not covering our costs, and we're going in the hole. So that the margin is gone. So a company with a higher margin of safety is better than a company with a lower margin of safety. So operating leverage, you want lower. Margin of safety, you want higher.